This week in gender, we are taking a look at masculinity. And this lecture is so long, it's only one slide. But I just want to introduce this one concept to you. It's the typology that was developed by R.W. Connell with four different kinds of masculinity. So the first one is hegemonic, and hegemonic is people in power, right? It could be large amounts, maybe billions of dollars, right? Financial power. It could be, high levels of achievement and being totally famous as somebody in who competes in a various professional sport. It could be somebody who is like famous as an actor or something. It could be political power, and so it's anybody who has an inordinate amount of power. It's the ultimate alpha males in our society. Then there's subordinated, and that's referring to the masculinity of gay men or other men who experience domination from our patriarchy, right? This can end up kind of manifesting as emotional and physical abuse. It's kind of the exclusion from like being considered, or like the assumptions, the stereotypes that we have about masculinity, kind of being treated like, well, no, you're not really one of the guys. So subordinated masculinity can get really, really serious and can get really excruciatingly unfair. Complicit masculinity, if hegemonic is the alpha males, complicit's like the beta males. They don't technically have power, but they have enough in common with hegemonic males that they benefit from the fact that people that share various identities, including masculinity, kind of, since they're at the forefront of power, they kind of benefit off to the side from the fact that people who seem like them have power. So they can be a little bit more kind of progressive and open-minded in some ways, but they're still benefiting from patriarchal power. Patriarchal power meaning kind of the power of masculinity in society, the patriarch of a family, that type of thing, where it's like a paternal masculine power in society. And then there's marginalized masculinity. And so that is the masculinity that exists among men who intersect with other various identities that may receive oppression in our society, such as social class or race. So a lot of times what happens with marginalized masculinity, not always, but somebody who does not have privilege in relation to their social class, or is receives prejudicial or discriminatory treatment in relation to their race. Well, the intersection of their identities, masculinity in general in our society, right, has some power. And so sometimes, not always, people who have marginalized masculinity kind of lean into that masculinity, are kind of almost hyper masculine to compensate for the fact that they do not have power in other identities in their life. So hopefully this gives you a minute to kind of look at the ways that masculinity um, manifests in our society. And it's interesting because if you think about it, over the years, the socialization of masculinity is to not talk, right? We're going to see examples of that this week, to just kind of keep everything bottled up inside. And we have a lot of expectations for masculinity to be tough and aggressive. Those were some of the popular stereotype words that were used when we went through stereotypes and looked at the gender rules in our society. And so, whereas when we talk about gender and we talk about the various identities that end up being mistreated, treated prejudicially, or oppressed by society, we don't always necessarily think of masculinity in that way because there does hold a level of power. But I think what we will take a look at and learn through the week is how, in a world where we're so unfair to so many people, that we really, really do a disservice a lot of times to people who identify as masculine by not letting them and nurturing them to live full emotional lives. And so hopefully by like our look at both masculinity and femininity in this class, as we kind of make our way through the ways that gender works, it gives you a lot to think about what you've observed in life, who you've seen live out their masculinity in the ways that they've done it. And my goal always in this class and with sociology in general is to think about how you think something should be. So, how do you think masculinity should be?